The snow had fallen for 3 days without pause over Montclair Manor, muffling every sound until even time seemed to hold its breath. The grand estate stood like a ghost beneath its frozen shroud, tall spires, iron gates, windows glazed with frost. Inside, silence reigned. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that grows between two hearts that once swore to share a life and found only distance instead. Lady Evelina sat by the window of her chamber, wrapped in a shawl of pale blue silk. She watched the snow fall and thought, as she often did, that it mirrored her marriage, beautiful, endless, and cold. It had been 2 years since her wedding to Lord Alaric Montclair, Duke of Winthorne, the most envied man in the kingdom. And yet, in all that time, she could recall only a handful of moments where he'd truly looked at her. Their union had not been of affection, but of arrangement. A political match forged by families seeking power. On their wedding night, he'd kissed her hand, murmured, "Forgive me, my lady," and left her alone with her vows and her tears. He had not come to her chamber since. The servants whispered, of course. They always did. Some said the Duke still mourned his lost love, a commoner, a governess from the neighboring estate who had died before their betrothal. Others claimed he was simply made of ice, incapable of warmth or mercy. Evelina, in her quiet grace, never contradicted them. But every night, she prayed that something, anything, might thaw the walls between them. That night, as the snowstorm howled beyond the windows, she descended to the great library, the only place in the manor where warmth seemed to linger. The firelight spilled golden across rows of old books, the scent of leather and pine heavy in the air. She lit a candle and ran her fingers over the spines, whispering titles like spells: The Iliad, The Letters of Lysandra, Tales of the North Wind. She didn't hear the door open. Could you not sleep either? The voice, deep, steady, and unexpectedly near, made her start. Her candle wavered. When she turned, he was there, framed by the firelight, Lord Alaric himself. His dark hair was damp with melted snow, his cravat loosened, his eyes shadowed from sleeplessness. "I didn't expect anyone else awake," she murmured. "Nor I." His gaze drifted over the room before settling on her. "I come here when the silence becomes unbearable." It was the first true confession he had ever made to her. Evelina hesitated, unsure whether to leave or stay. But something in his tone, the weary honesty, rooted her in place. He crossed the room, his steps measured, and poured himself a glass of brandy from the decanter on the side table. The amber caught the light, and for a moment he looked almost human. Not the cold Duke of Winthorne, but a man haunted by something he could not name. "Did you always love books, my lord?" she asked softly. "I loved her because she did," he said before he could stop himself. The words slipped out like a wound reopening. Evelina froze. He looked away, as if ashamed. "Forgive me. I shouldn't have spoken." "No," she said quietly. "You should have. Someone should listen to what still hurts you." That night, they did not speak again, but he did not leave. They sat on opposite sides of the fire until dawn, the silence between them no longer cruel, only fragile. And as the snow melted against the glass, Evelina dared to hope. The days that followed were different, subtly so. The Duke still kept his distance, but his glances lingered longer. He would pause at the doorway of her music room as she played, his hand resting on the frame, his eyes soft with something almost like longing. It was not love, not yet, but something was shifting in the quiet. Evelina found herself returning to the library each night, drawn by an invisible thread. Some nights he came too. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they only sat in silence, each lost in thought. The fire, the books, and the unspoken grief between them became a sanctuary. One evening, she found him standing by the shelves, reading a worn leather volume. Letters from a nobleman to his lost love, she read from the spine. "A strange choice for you, my lord." He smiled faintly. "Perhaps I've grown sentimental." She laughed softly, the first sound of joy to echo in that room in years. It startled them both. "Tell me," she said, stepping closer. "Do you ever miss her?" He closed the book and stared into the flames. "Every day. I thought marrying you would silence her ghost. Instead, it gave her a new one." The words cut her, yet she understood. "I never asked for your heart, Alaric," she said, her voice trembling. "Only your truth." He turned to her then, his face etched with years of restraint. "And what of you, Evelina? Have you no ghosts of your own?" Her lips parted. "Only dreams I buried before they could bloom." The fire cracked. Outside, the wind moaned against the glass, a symphony of loneliness and hope. Something shifted between them. He reached out, almost without thought, and brushed a lock of hair from her face. His fingers lingered, too long to be proper, too tender to be meaningless. "Do you ever wonder," he whispered, What our marriage might have been, had we met differently?
Her breath caught. Every day.
Their eyes met, his dark, hers bright as moonlit water, and in that gaze, every unsaid word between them finally spoke.
He took a step forward.
She did not move away. Evelina, he said, her name a prayer, for 2 years I have lived like a shadow beside you. But tonight. Tonight, she breathed, the shadows no longer frighten me.
He kissed her then.
Not with hunger, not yet, but with the aching gentleness of a man who has forgotten how to feel and is learning again. The world outside the library ceased to exist. The snow fell, the fire burned low, and time folded around them. When they parted, she was trembling.
This is wrong, she whispered.
We are husband and wife in name, yet strangers in truth. Then let this night change that, he murmured, his forehead resting against hers. Let the past die here. And when dawn came, they were no longer strangers. The weeks after the library night passed like waking from a long, cold dream. The servants noticed first, the Duke's laughter echoing faintly down the halls, the Duchess walking the gardens in sunlight instead of solitude. There were still silences, still moments of hesitation, but now they were filled with warmth, not distance. Alaric began to dine beside her. He asked about her books, her paintings, her dreams, as though rediscovering the woman he had promised to cherish and never truly seen. Yet love, once forbidden by circumstance and pride, rarely comes without its test. One morning, a letter arrived, sealed with black wax. The name on it was one neither of them wished to read. Lady Catrine of Winthorn. The governess who had once owned his heart, alive, not dead. Evelina's hands trembled as she read the line he could not. She was taken ill abroad, but has recovered. She wishes to see you, my lord. Alaric's face turned pale.
I thought she was gone, he said hoarsely.
I buried her memory because I believed there was no hope left.
And now? Evelina asked.
He looked at her, at the woman who had sat beside his grief, warmed his heart in the silence of the library, loved him without asking for anything in return. Now, he said slowly, I must face what I was to deserve what I have. That evening, he rode to the village where Lady Catrine waited. Evelina watched him go without tears. She knew love was not a chain but a choice, and she would not beg to be chosen. He returned at dawn, his eyes shadowed, his coat damp from rain. She forgave me, he said. But she is not the woman I loved. And I am not the man who loved her. Evelina met his gaze steadily. Then who are you now? The man whose heart began again beside a fire, with the woman who never stopped believing he had one. He crossed the room and took her hands. I was cold for so long, he whispered. You warmed me back to life. Outside, spring melted the last of the snow. The gardens bloomed. The library stood as their secret sanctuary, the place where silence turned to love. Years later, when the Duke and Duchess of Winthorn were spoken of, the villagers would say theirs had been a strange marriage, one born of duty but saved by a single night of truth. And sometimes, in the great library, a candle would flicker for no reason at all, as if the memory of that night, when the cold gave way to warmth, still lingered in the air.